The arrival. The stars disappeared behind a wall of metal and fire. Admiral Vexthul stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Dominion's Edge, watching 10,000 warships arrange themselves in perfect battle formation. Each vessel was a masterpiece of Kethtar engineering, bristling with plasma cannons and quantum torpedoes. The smallest destroyer could level a city. The largest dreadnoughts could crack moons in half. This was the greatest fleet the Kethtar Empire had ever assembled. It stretched across millions of kilometers of space, a testament to their power and dominance. For over 2 centuries, this empire had expanded across the galaxy, bringing order to primitive worlds and inferior species. 47 star systems had fallen before them. 47 civilizations had either surrendered immediately or been crushed beneath the weight of Kethtar superiority. Some had tried to fight. None had lasted more than a few hours. Now they faced their 48th conquest. A small yellow star with several planets, including one blue world that seemed particularly rich in resources and primitive life. The inhabitants called themselves humans. Status report. Vexthul commanded, his forearms folded behind his back in the traditional pose of Kethtar authority. All ships report ready for battle, Admiral, his tactical officer replied. The fleet is positioned according to Standard Conquest Formation 7. We have complete orbital superiority. Vexthul nodded with satisfaction. The humans had made this remarkably easy. Their entire military presence in space consisted of a few dozen small vessels that posed no threat whatsoever. Most of their civilization appeared to be confined to their home planet, with only minor colonies on nearby worlds. Have they responded to our demands? He asked. Yes, Admiral. They sent a single transmission requesting peaceful dialogue. They claim they wish to discuss terms for coexistence. Several officers on the bridge made clicking sounds with their mandibles, the Kethtar equivalent of laughter. Coexistence was not how the Empire operated. There were rulers and there were subjects. The strong commanded, the weak obeyed. How pathetic, Vexthul said. Did they seriously believe we would negotiate with them as equals? It appears so, Admiral. They seem genuinely confused about why we would attack them. This was always the same story. Every primitive species believed they could reason with the Kethtar Empire. They thought words could stop plasma cannons and diplomatic immunity could deflect quantum warheads. Such naive thinking only proved how inferior they truly were. Sir, another officer called out. We're detecting movement from the human forces. Vexthul turned to the main display screen. 3 sleek vessels had detached themselves from the small human fleet and were moving slowly toward his armada. They were tiny compared to even his smallest escort ships, looking more like luxury transports than military vessels. 3 ships? Vexthul asked, incredulous. They're sending 3 ships against 10,000? That appears to be correct, Admiral. Are they attempting to ram us, some kind of suicide attack? Negative, sir. They're moving far too slowly for that. Current velocity suggests they'll reach our perimeter in approximately 30 minutes. Vexthul studied the approaching vessels more carefully. They had an unusual design, smooth and curved rather than the angular, aggressive appearance of proper warships. They almost looked elegant, which seemed completely inappropriate for instruments of war. Can our sensors penetrate their hulls? I want to know what weapons they're carrying. The sensor officer worked at his console for several minutes, his expression growing increasingly puzzled. Admiral, this is strange. Our most advanced scanning systems cannot penetrate their hull material. I'm reading no weapon signatures, no energy emissions, no defensive systems. That's impossible. No material can block our sensors. I'm running full spectrum analysis now, sir, but I'm getting the same results. It's as if those ships are made of something that doesn't exist in our database. Vexthul felt a small flicker of unease, but he quickly suppressed it. The Kethtar Empire possessed the most advanced technology in the galaxy. No primitive species could possibly have developed anything beyond their understanding. Perhaps their ships are just poorly constructed, he said. Primitive alloys might not register properly on our systems. Possibly, Admiral, though I've never seen anything like this before. The 3 human vessels continued their slow approach, making no threatening moves. They didn't even have their weapons powered up, assuming they had any weapons at all. Their Behavior suggested either supreme confidence or complete ignorance of the danger they faced. "Admiral," the communications officer announced, "we're receiving another transmission from the human vessels." "Put it through." The main screen flickered and displayed the interior of one of the approaching ships. A human female sat in what appeared to be a command chair, looking remarkably calm for someone facing imminent destruction. She was smaller than a Kethtar, with only 2 arms and soft-looking skin. Her species appeared even more fragile than the intelligence reports had suggested. "This is Captain Sarah Chen of the United Earthship Prometheus," she said in accented Galactic Standard. "I'm speaking on behalf of the human government. We're approaching your fleet under diplomatic immunity to discuss a peaceful resolution to this situation." Vexthul almost laughed. "Diplomatic immunity? You're in no position to claim immunity from anything human. You will surrender immediately or face the consequences." "Admiral, with all due respect, I don't think you understand the situation here," Captain Chen replied. "We've been monitoring your empire's expansion for quite some time. We know about your previous conquests, your military capabilities, and your standard operational procedures." "Monitoring us? From your primitive little world?" Now Vexthul did laugh. "Human, your species barely achieved faster than light travel 50 years ago. You have no capability to monitor anything beyond your own solar system." "I'm afraid that's not accurate, Admiral. We've had observers in your territory for decades. We know about your conquest of the Zelon systems, your destruction of the Miran colonies, and your current plans for this region of space." This gave Vexthul pause. The details she mentioned were classified at the highest levels of the Empire. How could she possibly know about them? "You're bluffing," he said finally, "attempting to confuse us with random information." Admiral Vexthul of the 3rd Conquest Fleet, personal identification code Zeta 779, promoted to your current position after the successful siege of Talos Prime 3 years ago, where you commanded the orbital bombardment that killed 12 million Talosians in the first hour. Vexthul's blood ran cold. His personal identification code was known only to the highest levels of Imperial command. The specific details about Talos Prime were in sealed military records. "How do you know this?" he demanded. "As I said, we've been watching. We had hoped that your species might eventually choose a more peaceful path, but your continued aggression has forced us to reconsider our policy of non-interference." "Non-interference? What are you talking about?" "Admiral, humanity has been spacefaring far longer than your intelligence reports suggest. We've simply chosen to remain discreet. We prefer to let younger species develop naturally without our influence. Unfortunately, some species interpret our absence as weakness." The 3 human ships had reached the outer edge of the Kethtar fleet. They stopped exactly 1,000 kilometers from the nearest destroyers, holding position with perfect precision. "You have exactly 1 minute to withdraw your fleet from this system," Captain Chen continued. "After that, we'll be forced to take defensive action." "Defensive action?" Vexthul's voice rose in disbelief. "You're threatening us? 3 tiny ships against 10,000 dreadnoughts? Admiral, please don't make this harder than it needs to be. We really don't want to hurt anyone." The transmission ended, leaving Vexthul staring at the blank screen. Around him, his bridge crew remained silent, clearly as shocked as he was by the human's audacity. But underneath his anger, Vexthul felt something else growing. Something he hadn't felt in decades of conquest and victory. Fear. Because despite all logic, despite all evidence, something about those 3 silent ships made his advanced sensors scream warnings he couldn't understand. And the human captain had sounded genuinely sorry about what might happen next. Miscalculation, 1 minute passed. Admiral Vexthul watched the countdown timer on his command display reach 0. The 3 human ships remained motionless at the edge of his fleet, making no aggressive moves. They hadn't powered weapons, hadn't raised shields, hadn't done anything that would indicate preparation for battle. "Time's up, Admiral," his tactical officer reported unnecessarily. Vexthul straightened his uniform and activated the fleet-wide communications channel. 10,000 ship captains would hear his words, along with whatever recording devices the humans might have listening. "Attention, human vessels," he announced, his voice carrying the full authority of the Kethtar Empire. "You have made demands that demonstrate either incredible arrogance or complete ignorance of your situation. I will explain this once, so listen carefully." He gestured toward the main display, which now showed the full scope of his armada. Ship after ship filled the view screen, each one bristling with enough firepower to devastate entire continents. You see before you the third conquest fleet of the Kethtar Empire. We represent a civilization that has dominated this galaxy for over 2 centuries. We have conquered 47 star systems. We have defeated species far more advanced than your own. Your primitive technology, your laughable military forces, your entire civilization exists only because we have not yet decided to claim your world. The human ships made no response. They simply continued to drift silently through space as if his words meant nothing to them. Your species achieved basic faster-than-light travel barely 50 years ago, Vexthul continued. Our intelligence networks have monitored your pathetic attempts at space exploration. You have a handful of colonies, a few dozen military vessels, and technology that wouldn't qualify as obsolete in our museums. You are insects trying to threaten giants. Still no response from the humans. Therefore, I will give you one final opportunity to surrender. Power down your vessels, submit to Imperial authority, and your deaths will be quick. Continue this foolish resistance, and your entire species will suffer for your arrogance. The communications channel crackled with static. Then, Captain Chen's voice emerged, as calm as before. "Admiral, I appreciate the history lesson, but I'm afraid your intelligence about humanity is somewhat outdated." "Outdated?" Vexthul snorted. "Our spy networks are the most sophisticated in the galaxy." "Perhaps. But they've only been watching us for 50 years. Since we began using the FTL technology we allowed you to detect. We've actually been spacefaring for considerably longer." "Impossible. Our archaeological surveys of your system show no evidence of advanced technology before that period. That's because we're very good at not leaving evidence when we don't want to. Admiral, humanity has been aware of the Kethtar Empire since before your species developed interstellar flight. We've been watching you expand across the galaxy, hoping you might eventually choose a more peaceful path." Vexthul felt that uncomfortable flutter of unease again. "You're lying. Your homeworld is called Kethvar. It orbits a red giant star in what you call the sacred system. Your species evolved from desert predators, which explains your aggressive territorial instincts. You developed faster-than-light travel 173 years ago, using quantum tunnel drives. Your first interstellar colony was established on Kethtar Minor, which you discovered was rich in the rare minerals needed for your technology." The bridge fell silent. Every detail was correct, down to the specific terminology the Kethtar used for their own historical events. Your current emperor is Zekthul VII, who came to power after the assassination of his predecessor 12 years ago. The assassination was carried out by the Red Claw faction, though officially it was blamed on rebels from the outer territories. Vexthul's blood turned to ice. The Red Claw faction's involvement in the emperor's death was the most closely guarded secret in the empire. Fewer than a dozen individuals knew the truth. "How?" he whispered. "As I said, we've been watching. We have observation posts throughout your territory, monitoring your expansion and hoping you might develop wisdom along with power. Unfortunately, your species seems committed to conquest rather than cooperation." "This is impossible," Vexthul said. But his voice lacked conviction. "If you possess such advanced surveillance capabilities, why haven't you revealed yourselves before?" "Because we prefer not to interfere with younger species' development. We've learned that premature contact often does more harm than good. We watch, we protect when necessary, but we don't conquer." "Protect?" Vexthul laughed harshly. "What could you possibly protect anyone from?" "From you, Admiral. From civilizations like yours that choose expansion over exploration, domination over cooperation." The human captain paused, and when she spoke again, her tone carried a note of sadness. "We had hoped the Kethtar Empire might eventually outgrow its aggressive phase. Many species do, given time. But your attack on the Zelen refugees last month, your systematic destruction of the Miran cultural sites, Your plans to strip mine inhabited worlds? We can't stand by any longer. Vexathul's mind raced. The Zellan refugees had been classified as enemy combatants to justify their elimination. The Moran cultural sites had been destroyed to prevent future rebellion. Both operations were supposed to be secret. Even if everything you say is true, he said finally, what difference does it make? You have 3 ships against 10,000. Whatever technology you possess, you cannot possibly stand against the entire Third Conquest fleet. Admiral, I really wish you would reconsider. We don't want to fight you. Then surrender now and save us all some time. I'm afraid that's not an option. Vexthul had heard enough. These humans might possess advanced surveillance technology, but they were still vastly outnumbered. Whatever they were planning, it would end when they faced the reality of superior firepower. Tactical, he commanded. Select one of our dreadnoughts. I want a demonstration. Destroy one of the human vessels with minimal force. Admiral, his tactical officer looked confused. Minimal force? Use just enough power to vaporize the target. I want the other 2 ships to witness what happens to those who threaten the Empire. Understood, sir. The Eternal Vengeance is in optimal firing position. Vexathul watched the tactical display as one of his most powerful dreadnoughts adjusted its position. The Eternal Vengeance was a masterpiece of military engineering, armed with plasma cannons that could melt asteroids and quantum torpedoes that could crack planetary crusts. Fire when ready, he ordered. The dreadnought's main cannon charged with a sound like rolling thunder. Energy readings spiked across the fleet's sensors as the weapon prepared to unleash destruction equivalent to a small star's output. Firing. Now, the tactical officer reported. A beam of superheated plasma lanced across space, bright enough to temporarily blind unprotected sensors. The energy bolt contained enough power to vaporize a small moon. It struck the lead human vessel dead center and simply vanished. Vexthul stared at the display in shock. The plasma beam, powerful enough to destroy any known ship design, had made contact with the human vessel and disappeared, as if it had never existed. The target remained completely undamaged, drifting peacefully through space. What happened? He demanded. I don't know, Admiral, the tactical officer stammered. Direct hit confirmed, but there's no damage to the target. Impossible. Check. Your sensors. All sensors confirm the same reading, sir. The plasma beam made contact and then stopped registering on any of our instruments. Vexthul felt the first real touch of fear. In 2 centuries of conquest, he had never seen anything like this. No shield technology could simply absorb that much energy without trace. The communications channel activated again and Captain Chen's voice filled the bridge. Admiral, you've made your choice. I'm genuinely sorry it came to this. Her tone wasn't threatening or angry. She sounded sad, like someone delivering news of a death in the family. What are you? Vexthul whispered. We're human, Admiral. We're just not what you expected us to be. The 3 human ships began to glow with a soft, beautiful light that made Vexthul's threat assessment systems scream warnings about energy readings beyond their measurement capabilities. The warning. The glow from the human ships grew brighter. Admiral Vexthul watched his instrument panels flash warning after warning. Energy readings climbed beyond the maximum scale his sensors could measure. Temperature gauges showed impossible heat signatures. Gravitational detectors registered distortions that shouldn't exist. Admiral, his science officer called out, voice tight with panic. The readings we're getting from those ships said they're not possible. Explain. Sir? They're showing energy output equivalent to a small star, but there's no fusion reaction, no antimatter annihilation, no power source we can identify. The energy is just there. Vexthul studied the tactical display. The 3 human vessels remained motionless, but that gentle light emanating from their hulls was clearly visible even at this distance. It wasn't harsh or threatening. If anything, it looked almost peaceful, like the soft glow of a distant sunrise. That made it even more terrifying. Full fleet targeting, he ordered. All ships, all weapons. I want those 3 vessels obliterated. Admiral, his tactical officer hesitated. Sir, that's 10,000 ships firing simultaneously. The combined energy output will be... I know exactly what it will be. Do it. But sir, an attack of that magnitude could destabilize local space-time. The gravitational effects alone. I don't care if we crack reality itself, Vexthul roared. Those things are not natural. Destroy them. Now! The communication system activated without being turned on. Captain Chen's image appeared on the main screen, her expression filled with genuine regret. Admiral, please don't do this. We're offering you one final chance to withdraw peacefully. The only thing I want to hear from you is surrender, Vexthul snarled. I was afraid you'd say that. Chen sighed deeply. For what it's worth, we truly hoped it wouldn't come to this. Humanity has been watching your species for a long time. We've seen the potential for greatness in the Kethtar people. Your art, your philosophy, your capacity for loyalty and honor. Under different circumstances, we might have been friends. Save your pity for someone who needs it. Admiral, you should know that what's about to happen isn't personal. We don't hate your people. We're just disappointed. You've chosen fear and aggression over curiosity and cooperation. You've decided that strength means the ability to destroy rather than the wisdom to protect. Vexthul cut off the transmission and turned to his weapons officer. Fire everything. Now. What happened next defied every law of physics the Kethtar understood. 10,000 ships opened fire simultaneously. Plasma beams, quantum torpedoes, gravitational disruptors, particle cannons, and exotic weapons that bent space itself all converged on the 3 human vessels. The combined energy output was equivalent to a supernova. The gravitational distortion was so severe that several smaller ships in the fleet were pulled off course by the sheer magnitude of forces involved. The weapons fire created a brilliant sphere of destruction that temporarily outshone the system's star. For a moment, everything in that region of space became pure energy, hot enough to melt neutronium and dense enough to create its own event horizon. When the energy dissipated and the sensors cleared, Vexthul expected to see empty space where the human ships had been. Instead, he saw something that made his mind struggle to process what his eyes were showing him. The 3 human vessels remained exactly where they had been, completely undamaged, but now they were larger. Tactical report, he whispered. Sir, the human ships appear to have absorbed the entire attack. Our sensors show they've increased in mass by approximately 30%. They're also showing even higher energy readings than before. They absorbed it. All of it. Every joule, Admiral. Nothing was reflected, nothing was dispersed. It was all consumed somehow. Vexthul felt his worldview crumbling. The combined firepower of his entire fleet, energy that could sterilize planets, had not only failed to damage the human ships, but had actually made them stronger. What kind of monsters are we dealing with? Someone whispered on the bridge. The communication system activated again. This time, Captain Chen's image was joined by 2 other humans, presumably the commanders of the other vessels. All 3 looked deeply sad. Admiral, Chen said softly, we want you to understand something. What just happened? That wasn't us defending ourselves. That was us gathering the energy we need for what comes next. What comes next? Vexthul asked, though he wasn't sure he wanted to know. You forced us to reveal capabilities we prefer to keep hidden. For over 200 years, humanity has watched your empire expand across the galaxy. We've seen you destroy worlds, eliminate entire species, erase cultures that took millions of years to develop. We've hoped you might change, might grow beyond your need for conquest. One of the other captains, a human male with graying hair, spoke up. We've intervened subtly before. That plague that mysteriously stopped spreading through your outer colonies. 7 years ago, that was us. The asteroid that was going to impact your homeworld but suddenly changed course. Also us. The rebellion on Talar Prime that collapsed just before it could overthrow your planetary government. We made sure your people had time to find a peaceful solution. We've been protecting you from yourselves, the 3rd captain added, a younger woman with kind eyes. Because we believe every species deserves the chance to find a better path. But your attack on this system represents a line we cannot allow you to cross, Chen continued. Humanity will not permit the destruction of inhabited worlds in our local stellar neighborhood. The species living here are under our protection now. Protection? Vexthal laughed bitterly. You have 3 ships. I have 10,000. Admiral, Chen said gently. You still don't understand what you're dealing with. These aren't warships. They're not even military vessels. They're exploration craft, designed for scientific research and peaceful contact. Then what are your actual warships like? We don't have warships, Admiral. We haven't needed them for a very long time. The 3 human ships began to pulse with that strange, beautiful light. The energy readings on Vexthal's instruments climbed beyond anything his sensors could measure. What we have, Chen continued, are tools, technologies your species hasn't even dreamed of. We can manipulate matter at the quantum level. We can bend space and time to our will. We can reach into the fundamental forces that hold reality together and reshape them as needed. That's impossible. Is it, Admiral? Your own ships just provided us with enough energy to demonstrate exactly what's possible. The pulsing light from the human vessels was growing brighter and more rapid. Throughout the Keth-Tar fleet, ship, commanders were reporting instrument failures as their systems tried to process readings that exceeded their design parameters. Admiral, Chen said, and for the first time, her voice carried a note of steel beneath the sadness. We're going to give you one final demonstration of why humanity chooses diplomacy over warfare. Pay attention, because this lesson will determine whether your species has a future or not. The 3 human ships stopped pulsing and began to emit a steady, brilliant glow that seemed to pull light from the surrounding stars. We're not doing this because we're angry, Chen continued. We're not doing this for revenge or to prove our superiority or to establish dominance. We're doing this because sometimes the only way to prevent a greater tragedy is to demonstrate the reality of power. The glow intensified until it became difficult to look at directly. Your empire stands at a crossroads, Admiral. You can choose to learn from what happens next, to grow beyond your need for conquest, to find your place in a galaxy where cooperation is stronger than domination. Vexthal found himself holding his breath. Or you can choose to see this as a challenge to be overcome, a new enemy to defeat, a problem to be solved through greater violence. The light from the human ships began to pulse again, faster and brighter. Choose wisely, Admiral, because what happens next will be the only demonstration humanity ever gives. The demonstration, the universe held its breath. Admiral Vexthal watched the 3 human ships glow like newborn stars, their light somehow both beautiful and terrifying. Around him, his bridge crew stood frozen, staring at instrument readings that made no sense according to everything they knew about physics. Admiral, his science officer whispered, the energy signatures. They're affecting local spacetime. I'm reading gravitational anomalies, quantum fluctuations, reality distortions. That shouldn't be possible. Explain, Vexthal managed. Sir, it's like they're rewriting the fundamental laws of physics in their immediate vicinity. Matter is behaving differently around those ships. Energy is flowing in patterns that violate conservation laws. It's as if they're operating by completely different rules than the rest of the universe. Vexthal felt a cold certainty settling in his stomach. Whatever humanity truly was, whatever they had become during their hidden centuries of development, they were no longer bound by the same limitations that governed every other species in the galaxy. The communication system activated one final time. Captain Chen appeared on screen, but now there was something different about her. The gentle sadness was still there, but underneath it was something vast and ancient and utterly alien. For the first time, Vexthal understood that he wasn't looking at a primitive human from a backward world. He was looking at something that had transcended everything he thought he knew about intelligence and power. Admiral Vexthal, she said, and her voice seemed to come from everywhere at once. What you're about to witness is not an attack. It's an editing of reality itself. We're going to demonstrate why humanity chooses restraint over conquest, why we prefer to remain hidden rather than rule. What are you going to do? He asked. We're going to remove your fleet from existence, not destroy it, not damage it, not defeat it. We're simply going to change reality so that it was never here. That's impossible. Is it? Chen smiled sadly. Admiral, your species thinks in terms of building and destroying, creating and eliminating. You understand force and resistance, action and reaction. But what if there were beings who could step outside those rules entirely? The light from the human ships began to pulse in perfect synchronization. As it did, Vexthul felt something fundamental shift in the universe around him. What if, Chen continued, there were species that had learned to manipulate the basic code of reality itself? What if they could reach into the quantum foundation of existence and make changes to the very laws that govern what is and isn't possible? Vexthul tried to speak but found his voice had stopped working. Not because his throat was damaged, but because the concept of sound was becoming uncertain in the space around the human ships. Humanity discovered these capabilities 3 centuries ago, Chen explained, her image now flickering in and out of existence as local spacetime became unstable. We realized that with such power came a choice. We could become gods, ruling over lesser species and reshaping the galaxy according to our will, or we could become gardeners, protecting and nurturing the growth of younger civilizations. The pulsing light was spreading outward from the human ships, washing over the outer edges of the Kethtar fleet. Where it touched, something impossible happened. The ships didn't explode. They didn't collapse. They didn't burn or break apart. They simply stopped being. One moment, a massive dreadnought was there, bristling with weapons and filled with 1,000 crew members. The next moment, there was empty space, as if the ship had never existed at all. No debris, no energy signature, no trace that anything had ever occupied that region of space. We chose to be gardeners, Chen continued, her voice now coming from inside Vexthul's mind as well as through the communication system. We decided that true strength lay not in the ability to dominate, but in the wisdom to protect, not in forcing our will upon others, but in giving them the freedom to choose their own path. The wave of unexistence continued to spread through the fleet. Destroyer after destroyer, cruiser after cruiser simply ceased to be. Their crews didn't die. Death implied that they had once lived. Instead, reality was being rewritten so that they had never been born. Their ships had never been built. Their entire existence was being edited out of the timeline. Your empire forced our hand today, Admiral, Chen said, and now her image was changing, becoming something that hurt to look at directly. By threatening this system, by choosing conquest over cooperation, you've made it necessary for us to reveal what we truly are. Vexthul watched in horror as half his fleet vanished without a trace. Thousands of ships, millions of crew members, the pride of the Kethtar Empire, all erased from existence as if they were mistakes in a mathematical equation. We don't enjoy this, Chen continued, and her sorrow was so deep it seemed to echo through the fabric of space itself. Every time we're forced to act, we lose a little more of what we used to be. Each intervention pushes us further from our humanity, deeper into something that transcends mortal understanding. The wave was accelerating now, consuming entire battle, groups in seconds. Vexthul realized with crystal clarity that he was witnessing something beyond warfare, beyond technology, beyond everything his species had ever imagined was possible. This is why we remain hidden, Admiral. This is why we prefer to let younger species develop naturally. Because once you gain the power to rewrite reality itself, the temptation to use that power becomes almost overwhelming. 3/4 of the fleet was gone now. The remaining ships were frantically trying to escape, but the wave of non-existence was moving faster than their drives could carry them. We've watched your empire grow for 2 centuries, hoping you would eventually choose a different path. We've intervened subtly when necessary, protecting your people from disasters they didn't even know were coming. We've tried to give you time to develop wisdom along with strength. Vexthul found himself alone on his bridge. His crew hadn't died or been teleported away. They had simply never existed. He was the only one left, standing in a command center, designed for 12 officers, watching the last few hundred ships of his mighty armada wink out of existence. But today you forced us to choose between revealing ourselves and allowing you to destroy an inhabited world under our protection. You left us no alternative. The wave reached the outer hull of his flagship. Vexthul felt a strange sensation, as if reality was becoming uncertain around him. For a moment, he could see through multiple possible timelines simultaneously. Versions of history where his fleet had never been built, where the Kethtar Empire had chosen diplomacy over conquest, where humanity had revealed themselves centuries earlier as benevolent guardians. "You're sparing me," he realized. "Yes," Chen confirmed. "Someone needs to carry this message back to your empire. Someone needs to explain what really happened here." The wave passed through the ship around him, erasing everything except the small section of the bridge where he stood. He found himself in a tiny survival pod, the only remnant of the once mighty Dominion's edge. "Tell them, Admiral," Chen said, her image now flickering between human and something far more vast and incomprehensible. "Tell your emperor, your military commanders, your entire civilization what you witnessed here." Through the pod's viewports, Vexthul could see the 3 human ships beginning to fade as their stealth systems re-engaged. "Tell them that humanity extends this offer only once. Peaceful coexistence or face the consequences of their choice." The human ships were becoming transparent, their advanced technology making them invisible to sensors and naked eye alike. "Tell them that we know where every Kethtar ship is located, that we've been watching every move your empire makes, that we can reach any target instantaneously if they force us to act again." The ships were almost gone now, only the faintest outline visible against the stars. "And tell them," Chen's voice was fading as well, becoming a whisper in the cosmic wind, "that what happened today was not an attack. It was a warning. If they choose to ignore that warning..." The communication cut off. The human ships vanished completely, leaving Vexthul alone in the vast emptiness where the greatest fleet in Kethtar history had existed moments before. In the terrible silence that followed, Admiral Vexthul finally understood the true meaning of power. The new reality, the Kethtar High Council chamber, fell silent as Admiral Vexthul finished his report. 12 of the Empire's most powerful leaders sat around the obsidian table, their forearms folded in various poses of disbelief, anger, and barely controlled fear. For the past hour, Vexthul had recounted the impossible events at the human system, describing the systematic erasure of 10,000 ships by 3 small vessels that defied every known law of physics. "You expect us to believe, Supreme Commander," Rockthul said slowly, "that 3 primitive human ships eliminated our entire Third Conquest fleet without firing a single weapon?" "They didn't eliminate it, Commander," Vexthul replied, his voice hollow from weeks of repeating this story to increasingly skeptical audiences. "They edited it out of existence. There's a difference. The difference being that one is impossible, and the other is fantasy," Chancellor Mekvor snorted. "Admiral, we understand you suffered trauma during the fleet's destruction. Post-battle stress can cause hallucinations, false memories." "Check the deep space monitoring stations," Vexthul interrupted. "Check the quantum echo detectors. Check every piece of surveillance equipment we have. You'll find that 10,000 ships simply stopped existing at the same moment." "We've already checked," Intelligence Director Nextar spoke up. "The quantum signatures confirm your story. The ships didn't explode, didn't crash, didn't get destroyed by any conventional means. They just weren't there anymore." "Which is impossible," Rockthul insisted. "So was their surveillance network," Vexthul replied. "So was their knowledge of our classified operations. So was their ability to absorb the combined firepower of an entire fleet. Everything about humanity appears to be impossible until it isn't." Emperor Zekthul VII, who had remained silent throughout the debate, finally spoke. "Show them the recordings." Vexthul activated the holographic display in the center of the table. The council members watched in growing unease as the events unfolded exactly as he had described them. The futile attack on the human ships, the absorption of weapons fire, the wave of non-existence sweeping through the fleet. When the recording ended, the chamber remained quiet for several minutes. "Assuming this is real," Chancellor Mekvor said finally, "what exactly are we dealing with?" "A species that has transcended everything we thought we knew about technology and physics," Vexthul answered. "They claim to have been spacefaring for centuries, watching our expansion, intervening subtly to prevent disasters we never knew were coming. If they're so powerful, why haven't they conquered the galaxy already? Asked Military Coordinator Thexnall. Because they don't want to rule. They want to protect and nurture younger species. They see themselves as gardeners, not conquerors. Gardeners. Who can erase entire fleets from existence, Rakthul muttered. Only when forced to, Vexthul said. Captain Chen made it clear that they prefer to remain hidden. What happened to our fleet was a demonstration, not an attack. A warning about what they're capable of if we force their hand again. Emperor Zekthul leaned forward. What did they want from us? To stop expanding through conquest. To choose cooperation over domination. To find our place in what they called the galactic community, as equals rather than conquerors. And if we refuse? Vexthul was quiet for a moment, remembering the look in Captain Chen's eyes as reality itself bent to her will. Then they'll stop us, permanently. One fleet, Supreme Commander Rakthul said stubbornly. They destroyed one fleet. We have hundreds more across the Empire. Actually, Commander, Intelligence Director Nextar interrupted, consulting his datapad. We need to discuss something else. In the 3 weeks since Admiral Vexthul's return, our deep space monitoring stations have detected unusual activity throughout the Empire. What kind of activity? Human ships, appearing briefly in every system we control, staying just long enough to be detected, then vanishing again. The council members exchanged worried glances. How many systems? The Emperor asked. All of them, Your Majesty. Every single military installation, every colonial outpost, every strategic location in the Empire has been visited by human vessels. They appear for exactly 10 seconds, scan everything, then disappear. What were they scanning for? Everything, sir. Troop deployments, ship positions, defensive capabilities, industrial capacity. They now have complete intelligence on our entire military infrastructure. Impossible. Our stealth technology doesn't work on them, Commander. They can see through every defensive measure we have. The Emperor stood and walked to the great window overlooking the imperial capital. Below, millions of Kethtar citizens went about their daily lives, unaware that their entire civilization had just learned it was not alone in the universe, and not at the top of the galactic hierarchy. Your Majesty, Vexthul said quietly. They left a message at each location they visited. The same transmission repeated across the entire Empire. Play it. The holographic display activated again, showing Captain Chen's familiar face. But, this time, she was speaking directly to the Kethtar leadership. Leaders of the Kethtar Empire, she began. By now you've learned what happened to your third conquest fleet. You've seen the recordings, heard Admiral Vexthul's testimony, and confirmed the impossible truth through your own sensors. Her expression was serious but not threatening. We want you to understand that what occurred was not an attack on your people. It was a demonstration of why humanity chooses diplomacy over warfare. Your fleet was not destroyed as punishment, but erased to prevent a greater tragedy. The image paused as if Chen was choosing her words carefully. We know where every ship in your empire is located. We know your military capabilities, your strategic plans, your technological limitations. We could end your civilization in seconds, if we chose to, but we don't want to do that. Around the council table, several members shifted uncomfortably. What we want is for your species to join the galactic community as partners rather than conquerors. You have much to offer the galaxy. Your art, your philosophy, your engineering skills, your capacity for loyalty and honor. Under different leadership, the Kethtar people could become valued contributors to galactic civilization. The recording continued for several more minutes, outlining humanity's offer in detail. Gradual reduction of military forces, conversion of conquest fleets to exploration vessels, establishment of peaceful trade relationships with former target species, technical assistance to help transition the Empire's economy from war to exploration and commerce. When it ended, the council sat in stunned silence. They're offering to help us, Chancellor Mekvor said finally. After demonstrating they could eliminate us entirely, they're offering to help us transition to a peaceful civilization. It's a trap, Rakthul insisted. They want us to disarm so they can conquer us more easily. Commander, Vexthul said tiredly, they don't need us to disarm. They could conquer us right now if they wanted to. They're offering us a choice because they genuinely prefer cooperation to domination. You sound like you believe them. I do believe them. I've seen what they're capable of. If humanity wanted to rule the galaxy, they would already be doing it. The Emperor turned back to face the Council. Intelligence Director, what do our analysts make of this situation? Your Majesty, our best scientists have been studying the recordings and sensor data for weeks. Their conclusion is unanimous. Humanity possesses technology so far beyond our understanding that resistance would be not just futile, but impossible. They appear to have mastered reality manipulation at the quantum level. And your recommendation? Accept their offer, Your Majesty. Immediately and completely, Supreme Commander Rakthul rose angrily. You're asking us to surrender everything we've built. The Empire has stood for 2 centuries. The Empire has conquered 47 systems and eliminated dozens of species, Vexthul replied. Maybe it's time to build something better. Admiral, the Emperor said, you've been in direct contact with these humans. What is your assessment of their intentions? Vexthul considered carefully before answering. Your Majesty, I believe they are exactly what they claim to be. An ancient species that has chosen to protect rather than conquer, to nurture rather than dominate. They could have eliminated us centuries ago, but instead they watched and hoped we would choose a better path. He paused, remembering Captain Chen's expression of genuine sadness as she demonstrated humanity's power. I believe they're offering us one final chance to prove we can grow beyond our aggressive instincts. If we accept, they'll help us transition to a peaceful civilization that can contribute positively to the galaxy. If we refuse, then they'll stop us, and next time there won't be any survivors to carry the message home. 6 months later, Admiral Vexthul stood on the observation deck of Research Station Harmony, watching human engineers work alongside Kethtar scientists to construct new solar collection arrays. The joint project was one of dozens taking place throughout the former empire, as military installations were converted to research facilities and conquest fleets became exploration vessels. The transformation hadn't been easy. Many military commanders had resigned rather than accept the new reality. Some colonial governors had attempted rebellion, only to find their ships mysteriously suffering